morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me and on a beautiful summer day. I figured sun's out, guns out, might as well. Nobody's coming over to the studio, so I mean, sometimes I'm not even wearing pants. I am wearing shorts today, so don't worry about that. Today we're going to be talking about another plugin I've been spending the past couple of couple of months now learning some basic DSP, and so I made a plugin called DXB Channel Strip, which is on, let me just pull it up on my website real quick so you guys can see. And thank you to everybody who has picked up a copy of it. It's been really cool seeing something, that was just an idea go out into the world. So should be a link on the video that points you to my website. And so there's a new plugin, Autocomp. This is the one that I released, I think it'd be like a week and a half ago, DXB Channel Strip. A lot of people have picked this up. I do have a PC. It was a headache, man. So I built a Hackintosh probably six years ago with a nice beefy Intel processor. I locked it down to Mojave. Like, I had a solid system, used it for many years. And last November, I upgraded to a Mac Studio. So this Hackintosh has just been sitting under my desk for the past couple months. And I had a Windows bootloader on it. And somehow I pulled it out and used the drive for something else. So I had to reinstall Windows, get it set up to do the Avid code signing. And it was just a nightmare. The Mac version was actually a lot easier than the PC version. But both these plugins have PC and Mac installers available. I tested them on my Mac Studio, my PC. They both, we've had testers in the Discord, so they have been tested by people. They work really well. This Channel Strip plugin is a little CPU intensive, so just be aware of that. You need a fairly modern machine for it, because it's doing a lot. But this is great. This was the first plugin I made. It looks a little ghetto, and it sounds really, really good. But the plugin that I was interested, that I really wanted to make, was the one that I just put live on my website this morning, which is what we're talking about today. This is called Autocomp, and this is an automatic compressor. So it's really a leveling compressor. You can see in the screenshots, I've tested it in Final Cut. I've tested it in OBS. OBS is a little less stable for VSTs than Final Cut or DaVinci. I've tested this in DaVinci as well, and it works really well. But, I mostly work in Pro Tools, so that's the DAW that we're going to be focusing on today to kind of showcase this plugin and talk about what it does. As always, if you guys have questions, let me bring the chat up so we can see. Where did I put the chat window? We can move this guy out of the way. There it is. Cool. So we got Mike Wax, we got Sounds of Stories, and I'm sure more people will show up or not. That's totally fine too. So Autocomp, let's talk about what this is, why I made it, and the problems with other compressors. So you're listening to Autocomp right now. As you can see, I've got my microphone on an aux. I've got a Cedar DNS1 as the first insert. I have a EQ, and then I have Autocomp as the final in this chain. So let's just back up and talk about why I started learning a little bit about plugins, why I wanted to even try making the two that I did. There's so many compressors, there's so many EQs, there's a lot of channel strips out there. FabFilter makes really great plugins. Even the stock Avid ones are excellent. They're really good. And honestly, if you're starting out, you don't need to get into the gear acquisition syndrome of ooh, what's the hot new plugin I need to buy? Just use the stock ones to start with. But eventually you'll end up getting to the point where you need something that does a new thing. And that's where I was. Like DXB, I really wanted a dialogue focused channel strip. I wanted transparent compression. I wanted some EQ. I wanted some de-essing all in one spot, you know, with all the controls right there, not having to add 3 or 4 different plugins. And I wanted a safety limiter so that basically on my bus, I could just throw that and there you go. You know, one plugin replaces like 3 or 4. But at the back of my mind, months ago, like January, February, I had this idea for a compressor, and I was looking to see if anybody had done it before. And to my knowledge, it hadn't been done. And so that's what Autocomp is. So what this is this is an automatic leveling compressor. And my goal with it, wide range of input signals and intelligently optimize them for broadcast, but more so for just whatever, you know, format you need to mix. So this is a perfect compressor for something that needs to speak out and be heard. For film and podcast, TV, YouTube videos, that's usually dialogue. But for music mix, that could also be a bass guitar, could be a lead vocal, could be a synthesizer line. The problem with most compressors is you have to know how to tweak the threshold, the attack, the release, the makeup gain. Like makeup gain is one I see people just don't understand, and the threshold they don't really understand. So my thought for this was to make a plugin that handled those things for you, and it did them based on the measured input level. So the way Autocomp works is you can feed it any signal between, let's say, -60 and 0 dB, and it is going to pocket the signal somewhere in the sweet spot of, you know, -12 to -30. So it's going to add a lot of gain to quiet signals, and we're actually going to showcase how that works. Let me put on my headphones so I can hear what we're doing. But it only has 4 controls. I added the lift and the limit because some people said, hey, I don't want to use your limiter. Okay, turn it off. And then the lift is a low volume boost. So I'll show you what each of these controls does. But the lift setting, let's say, if the input signal is lower than the compression threshold, it's going to bring it up to the threshold so it gets compressed. So you can go from a whisper to a yell, and Autocomp is going to take care of leveling that to be right in the sweet spot. So the 4 controls are lift, comp, trim, and limit. We talked about the limit. It's just turning the safety limiter on or off. If the limiter is on, you can't clip the plugin. If you want to use your own limiter, go for it. But this is going to limit your true peak to like about -3. The lift is a low volume boost. The compression is an intelligent control that controls all the parameters of the plugin, the threshold, the makeup gain, the lift amount, it does one other, the ratio too. Yeah, it's tied to the ratio. So instead of having different controls for everything, do you want it less compressed or do you want it super compressed, you know? But it's RMS compression. So it's pretty transparent. Like once you get up around 80 to 100%, you start to hear that, yeah, it's squished. It sounds like a radio spot, but it doesn't sound distorted and nasty. So I will show, let's see, we got some questions here. So real quick, if I'm reading on ACX, the RMS has to be between 18 and 22. The total gain has to be between -5 and -3. Will this plugin automatically put the sounds in between those levels? I'll show you how to set a preset so you can just open this up and it's going to do it automatically. But I specifically wrote the code so that, yeah, the kind of default output, if you have the trim at 0 dB, is about -24-ish. So it's really set to be geared towards audio post. But then I tested this on like bass guitar, drums, not like a snare drum, but like the drum bus. I've tested on full mixes. I've tested vocals, anything that needs to be like, the main thing your ear hears, it's going to do a great job of giving you transparent, clean RMS compression with just a couple couple controls. So I'm going to show you, let's bring up, so this Pro limiter is on the stream that you guys are listening to. And I wanted to have this so that I can show you. Let's also add one Let me move this down. We'll also put one on, not for limiting, we're going to put this on the input so we can look at the difference between the input and the output levels. Okay, so look at the short term. I guess, you know, why don't we do, let's do maybe, do I have Ulian? I don't have Insight 2, which is a little heavy, but that might be better. Yeah, and then we probably want just that and make this smaller. So we're going to look at the difference between input and output. Sorry, this is kind of like not, this is, you know, all live, and I don't have like a sales pitch down. I really just wanted to showcase what this does, because it's a little bit nerdy, but it's really cool. Like you kind of have to hear the plugin, and you guys are going to listen to it the whole stream. So, okay, so the top is the input level. You can see we've got short-term, integrated, momentary, and then the bottom is the output level. So I'm just speaking into a Shure SM7B, and then I've got Cedar, and then I've got Pro Q3, because there's no EQ on the compressor. It's just a straight compressor. The only thing it's got is a compressor and a safety limiter that you can turn off. So if you have a bunch of rumble in your mic, cut it out, because it's going to compress the rumble too. Okay, so then I've got Autocomp. So let's look at the top, which is the mic input, and the bottom, which is the output that you guys are listening to. And we're going to take the compressor all the way down. Let's actually, I'll leave the trim where it's at because I want the stream to have the right level, but we'll bring this, actually, no, we need to have it at 0 for it to be 1-to-1. Okay, so compression all the way down. You can see the short-term input level is -29, and that matches the output. So no compression. Lift isn't doing anything because the lift amount is controlled by this control, the comp. And I scaled it on purpose. So now I'm going to bring this up to the default, which is 50%. And you'll start to see that when I get super loud, super loud, super loud, super loud, we're getting into the red on the input, but the output is still -24. Now I'm going to talk a little bit lower and maybe kind of like this, and it's bringing up the low stuff. So this is the difference of this compressor versus other compressors. Other compressors actually turn the signal down the more compression you add. And this will also boost the low volume stuff. And you'll see as I crank this way up, and I'm talking very quietly, the input level on the short term is -40, and short term on the output is -34. The quieter I get, the more boost it adds. So now I'm at a true whisper. The input level is -50. And the output level is about -36. You know, it's kind of hard because you have to maintain a consistent volume, but it's really at a whisper adding about 18 decibels of gain. And the nice thing is when I get loud, it still keeps the short term very contained. Short term is at minus pocket, and the input on the short term is minus, you know, a little bit lower, -30. Then if I get really, really loud and I start yelling into the mic, you can see the short term is -14, -12, and the output is not that bad. Like it's doing a good job compressing, and that is really what I wanted on this plugin. So there you have it. It does automatic compression. It's an automatic leveling compressor, and for hitting specs, dialogue specs especially, mixing a podcast, mixing an audiobook, heck, mixing a record where you have a lead line that needs to be a consistent level. This is going to keep you from having to ride the fader as much on a track. It does, however, because it's a compressor, it's going to raise your noise floor a bit. So just keep that in mind. If you do have stuff that gets really quiet, you can see down here, we're really, really low on the input, and the output is still pretty close to the pocket. It's going to bring up your noise floor a bit, which is why, that's why I have the Cedar DNS1 on there. And actually, Cedar contacted me about doing some like what do they call it? Affiliate links or whatever. So I might do that because they just dropped their price. I bought Cedar when it was like thousands of dollars, and now it's like a couple $100. So I might be pumping them a little bit. Because like for live stuff, the latency on this, it beats everything. Like I've been using Cedar for so long on mixes, and I recently started using it on streams, and it actually, like, it's pretty tough to beat. But I still need to like go back through the email and work out the details with them. So this is Autocomp. Let's look at some waveforms. You guys have looked at the input and output enough. So CPU usage is pretty mild, way milder compared to the channel strip plugin I made. So it's usable on an input. Right now, my session setup is 128 samples, and it's not skipping a beat. So that, you know, it's good for live. It's kind of one of the reasons I made it for. And let's see. Got some questions here. Should the Autocomp typically be the last plugin on your dialog chain? Yes. Alexander Edits asks, is this the same thing as a compander? It's not really. Like the lift is more of like upward compression. So it's an upward and downward compressor kind of mixed together, but not peak compressors. They're RMS compressors. So there's a input level calculated, and then the automatic makeup gain and the lift amount is adjusted based on where the average level is. So that's why it's a leveling compressor. It's not a character. It's not like an LA2A or anything like that. It's very natural sounding. And yeah, if you're looking for character, go elsewhere. Nomad Studio says, fantastic. Could we hear a bit of the audio with the dynamics off of the Pro Q? Oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Because compressors do add sibilance. So here's with the EQ compressed. I mean, let's turn off Cedar too. We might as well, because you guys should hear the noise come up, because I have a fan right by my mic from my GoStream box. So like if I start to whisper, but having the leveling of the you know, the compressor and the lift combined is really nice. So if you have a quiet space, then you're not going to hear the noise floor come up too much, and you're going to always back this off. Like for film and TV stuff, I'll have this around 50%, which is the default. And you can always turn lift off too. If you just want a regular compressor behavior without the low volume boost, just turn the lift control off, and there you go. It's just basically a one knob compressor at that point. You can trim this up or down. Like for streaming, you know, you might want to have more volume for YouTube. For TV, you're probably going to be here. You might need to trim it down for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why you would trim it down, but you could. So this was kind of a, should I do this? You know, should I have the trim? And it's like, yeah, because you might want less compression, but more output without clipping the limiter. So this lets you adjust for any platform that you want. I'm going to crank this and we'll see if, so I might clip that output going into my stream, but I shouldn't. Yeah, that's like super loud. I can actually hear it in my headphones now, but you're not going to clip the output level because the limiter is the last part of the chain. That's really hard for me to listen to. My voice lifted up that much. So yeah, so this is it. Autocomp. If you guys have questions or you want me to test it on a source, I can do that. Barring that, I'll show you kind of what it does to waveforms, because I feel like that's kind of interesting. So let me turn off some of this extra. We don't need that. We don't need a second thing of inserts. Okay, so let's look at some waveforms. So I recorded this spoken word thing. Let me bring this trim back up. There we go. To YouTube levels. YouTube levels are going to be about 6 or 8 dB, 6 to 8 dB up. Okay, so here's the raw audio that I recorded, which is a whisper going all the way up to a yell. And then this is the resulting waveform. I'll blow these up so you can really see them. So it boosted the whisper. You can see the whisper on this one is down, you know, minus 60 dB, barely reads above the noise floor. And here's the lift control, bringing it up. As I get louder, it starts to compress more and more. So basically it's limiting the dynamic range from about 60 dB with the raw down to about 20 dB with the compressed. So that was the goal. Like, I wanted to be able to go from a whisper to a yell and have it not be all the same level, like some dynamics, but not crazy dynamics. Because the number one thing people complain about with audio is I can't hear what they're saying. Can't hear the dialogue, can't hear over the music, can't hear over the sound effects. So this is going to help you keep your dialogue in the pocket. But, you know, for music too, it's going to help you keep whatever the main thing is, the like lead synth, lead vocal, bass guitar, if it's like bass heavy, you know, funk music or something like that. It's going to help you keep that stuff right in the pocket. So, oh, and you can use it as an audio suite. That's the other thing I was thinking about, is like if you had a bunch of clips, like this is going to, if you work on video games, I worked on video games at the early part of my career, editing voiceover. You know, they would get these heavy hitter voiceover people to come in. They'd record like 600 lines a day, and then the editors have to chop them up and turn them into assets play. So there were quests like, oh, you have to go to the hills and you know, clear the dungeon, that kind of stuff. So the problem with all those is they don't mix them. There's like, you make the clips and then they just play back, you know, in Fmod or Wise or whatever, and it's so frustrating to play a game and like you're getting a quest or somebody's talking to you and it's like, I can't hear you over the crappy synth orchestra music. So that's another reason I wanted to make this, is if you had a long line of clips, like let's say you had 600 lines from Kath Soucie and gosh, who are the other people that would do it all the time? Peter Cummings, Peter North, you know, Mia Khalifa, all those famous voiceover people. And you had 600 lines you had to process. Well, you just bring up your Autocomp and you crank them, you know, compress them down so that they're all, you know, you could really go ham on this, but let's just say you go to like 50%, you know, that sounds good on the source material. It's recorded with U87s, good room, you know, professionals, great. This is going to level stuff, you know, not like defaulter, but it's going to level it like a nice, transparent, rich compressor would do it. So we've got the audio suite version open. Let's look at this bass DI. I can't, I guess I could play this for you guys. So let's just render it real quick. And oh man, this is like an 8-minute file. Let's just do a little section of it. So the audio suite does take a little bit because of the RMS. So it calculates the RMS. I don't want to give too much away because somebody will end up copying this. Looking at you, FabFilter. But yeah, it calculates the RMS and adjusts the compression based on that. So here's 50%. Label this 50%. Let's go ahead and do like 100%. Crank it. There's a question, will it work with Adobe Audition? It totally should. I don't have Audition, and this is 100%. But it's a VST, VST3, AU, and AAX for both Mac and PC. So that's all. It's a single installer. Okay, so here's the raw. This is a bass DI. So here's the raw. Here's 100% compression, and here's 50%. Let's zoom in and see. See, it's letting the peaks through, which is nice. It doesn't change the character of the sound. It just compresses it. It limits the dynamic range. You can see, like this bass guitar now, it's going to sit in the mix really nice because it's not getting, you know, crunched over by the guitars as much. So it's really helping. The other cool thing about this is if you were to increase the input gain, see how I'm raising the clip gain on this to like 14, it's going to react a little differently because it's dynamically adjusting the makeup gain. So if you hit a hot signal, it is going to compress it more. This is 100% with clip gain. It was like +8, I think. So you can see the low stuff gets brought up a little more because we've hit the input stage a little harder. Do I have some vocals? There's a, oh, this is slap bass. I could do, this one would be good because this is like a free sound thing. So let's listen to this. I think you guys will be able, yeah, bus 5. You'll be able to hear this. So here's the raw. Oops. What happened there? Just like went away. Okay, so let's listen to the raw. And here's the compressed. We did get this click was actually accentuated a little bit. So that is because we're bringing up the low stuff. You can see it's brought the noise floor up a little bit in between. So if there's ghost notes and stuff down here, it's going to bring those up as well. So if we do a little less, let's see how that works. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So it's not a super fast compressor. This is lower. I think, did I have some vocals? I didn't have any vocals in here, but I mean, you guys have been listening to, you know, the stream, so you can hear what it does to a voice. So I think, let me just go through the questions here anymore. It looks like we covered all the questions. Yeah, so it's a smooth compressor. It's not a, you know, vintage. Oh, here's some vocals. I'm not going to play these because they're super embarrassed. I think it's actually me doing a rap song for a friend, which I'm not a rapper. So let's compress it all the way. You can see it's brought up a lot of the noise because of the lift. So if we turn that off and just use it as a regular compressor, it still dynamically adjusts the makeup gain to make things a little bit more even. Make sure you guys can see the waveforms nice and big here. So this is a really good example. This vocal is pretty dynamic. You know, there's a big peak here. There's a big peak here. It's a little peaky here, a little peaky here. And the compressed, 100% compressed version is much more even, but it still maintains the dynamics. And this was at 100%. So let's do it at like 50% with the lift engaged. And that has lowered the output because this also adjusts the percentage of the makeup gain. Because kind of the thing I don't like about compressors is the more you compress, the quieter they get. So it's intuitive, like 100% should be louder, right? So it's voiced that way to where if you're doing more compression, there's more makeup gain, and there's also going to be more lift engaged. So that's a good example of that. The other thing I could show you is that if we're just going stupid with it, you know, 100% compression, 12 trim, we cannot, it looks clipped, but I don't think it's going to sound clipped. Let's listen to this terrible rap.
Or up near, slabs are rough to make.
Yeah, so that is crunchy, but it's not clipped.
It's a nice shit. It's a nice. It's a nice.
Ugh. Lip smacks. That's another thing is with the lift, you know, anything below the threshold is going to be brought up. So if you are like me and you're a lip smacker, maybe do some declicking and decrackling before the plugin, not after. So yeah, that is, I think, all I wanted to talk about. I got so that's 2 plugins I've got to make in the past, I don't know, well, a couple months really. It's been very interesting, very different, and I'm really thankful I had the time. I do have projects, like I got work. I got a TV show I'm starting probably next week. I got some ADR I'm helping supervise. I've got a feature doc I'm working on. And so work has come back for the time being. I mean, it's going to slow down again. You know, that's just how it works. So I'm really thankful I had the time to learn this, some of it anyways. I'm nowhere near an expert. Like, I'm still at the beginning of this journey, but I think I'm going to continue it. I think making tools that I don't have access to, you know, like I don't have access to an auto leveling compressor. So I made one, you know, like that mindset of, this is useful to me, let me make it. If it works, I'll share it. If it doesn't work, then, you know, I'll try again, basically. I'm going to keep doing that. So if you guys have any questions about this or DXB, or better yet, what's a plugin that you'd like that nobody has? That would be super cool. Cause like at night, I'll just lay there thinking like, what do I want to do that I can't right now? And usually there's an answer to it. You know, FabFilter has awesome plugins. Acon Digital has great plugins. There's so many plugins out there that are just top shelf, and I use them every day. Isotope. I mean, Isotope, like, I spend half my day in Isotope when I'm dialogue editing. And Spectral Layers, I still need to check them out. But if you guys have an idea, or you're like, hey, I've always wanted a tool that does this, I will do my best to figure out how to make it. Some, you know, might not be possible, but maybe it will be. You never know. So, yeah. So thank you guys for joining me. Let's just open it up to questions, ideas. Like, I want to hear from you guys on this. I think I could even, do I want to do, like, bring people on? I don't think I set that up. If anybody wants to come on the show, like video, let me know and I'll share the link. And let me put I can put a link. So I think can I do a link in the chat? So it should be in the live stream description, but if you click this link, you'll see all the DaVinci Pro Tools templates, the plugin settings. I've got the Family Heirloom Practice Project, which is like a year ago I made it. That was really cool. Some buddies and I got together, made a short film for people to practice on. And then these 2 plugins. So you can pick this up there, or, you know, check it out, read the description of it. And yeah, so that's where that is. Let's look at the questions here. Okay, we have an idea from Master Nelson. DXB with parametric EQ, but that would be CPU heavy. Yep, that is, let me turn, there we go. Clean. That's better. Yeah, it would be CPU heavy. That's like something that I need to work on, is these plugins were not made in Juice. They were made in, yeah, I can show you guys this. This is it's another plugin. They're made in this plugin called Blue Cat Audio Plugin Script right here. And this is kind of, I forget what plugin this is. This is a kind of development platform, I guess. Like, you can get prototypes up and running super fast. So if you're looking to learn basic DSP, this is a really good place to start. You know, I in Juice at this point. It's not that different. Like, it's a slightly different coding language. It's actually an easier coding language to do in Juice. But my thing was, I wanted to get stuff fast. I wanted to take an idea and chuck it out there, you know, get some basic DSP and start tweaking stuff so that I could dial things in. And that's how I built DXB and Autocomp. Of course, I had to go to Chat GPT for a couple things. But in talking with some other developers, they're like able to write entire frameworks with Chat GPT, and I think Deep Think or DeepSeek, it's deep something. So my thought was, I have ideas and I want to make them. And if I can use those tools to get them, to a state where I can start tweaking them faster. Cause like biquad filters I did terrible in math. I did so bad in math that, like for me to learn everything I need to know about DSP coding would probably take me about 10 years. So some things I had to go to ChatGPT, some things I had to reach out to a developer and be like, hey, I need help with this. I don't know how to do it. But all the ideation behind these plugins, it all, just came from me wanting a tool that I didn't have. So I won't say I learned like enough to teach anybody anything, but I learned enough to, like a shade tree mechanic, working on a car. Like I can figure it out. I can figure out what's broken and troubleshoot and fix. And so, yeah. Okay. There's no more ideas for plugins, and that's totally fine. I have another one, but it's going to have to be kind of on the back burner because I have work, and the work pays way better than, selling a couple plugins on my website. So yeah, I will continue to do this. It'll be kind of like a, as I have time thing, just like YouTube, but it's really fun. It's probably the most fun I've had on a computer since Skyrim came out all those years ago. So yeah. Any other questions you guys have? I guess this might end up being a short stream, which is fine. It can be a short stream. I guess let's talk about, so last week we did talk about compression in general, and let's talk about that. Let's actually look at setting up a compressor that's not automatic and some of the other options. Pro Tools comes with a lot of compressors. I haven't used the 304C that much. So this is an optical compressor. Optical compressors are really interesting because they actually use light to compress. And so they tend to be a little smoother than other ones. You've got, of course, the LA2A clone, the BF2A. This combined with the BF76 on lead vocals is pretty good. The BF3A, and then usually where like most of us old dogs got started was the Avid DYN3, the Dynamics 3 compressor limiter. Gosh, this thing, when we would do TV shows, like game shows and stuff, this was like on the dialogue bus, you send everything out to this, and it's not great, but it's good, like it sounds fine. Really for the Avid plugins, the Pro Compressor is pretty great. It's amazing. It's got smart compression, RMS, average, peak, and fast. And dry mix control. If we were going to set this up for spoken word or vocal, their presets are a good starting point. So you can, it's even set up for de-essing, but let's just do broadcast mail to start. Turn automation off. So it starts you off with a -21 threshold, little bit of a knee, not much. Short attack, long release, and then it's going to limit the amount of compression with the depth control here. 2.9:1 ratio, and no makeup gain. And why is this interesting? They have a band on it. Let's just hear what this sounds like.
Sphere looks good from.
Oh, not on that. Please, not on that. Let's do this on. Yeah, we'll do it on this whisper thing. Go from a whisper like a true So it's not doing anything there, but when you get here,
guns, I get really excited, and then
and this is the problem with, you know, other compressors is when stuff is below the threshold, it doesn't do anything.
A little bit more of a hoarse whisper.
You know, you have to basically bring the threshold down
Now I'm gonna start growling
till it starts kicking in.
Now I'm gonna start talking a little.
And then by that point, it's doing too much. So the threshold doesn't, you know, you can't just set it and forget it. And again, that's why I made this auto compressor, because it's like, I don't want that. I want to just have it be, you know, leveled. So I'll show you kind of what this does.
We're gonna try to go from a whisper, like a true whisper, to a little bit more of a hoarse whisper, to maybe like a stage whisper, to now I'm gonna start growl talking like a valley girl. Now I'm gonna start talking a little more normally, and this is kind of how I normally talk. But then when you start talking about V8 engines and guns, I get really excited, and then we're gonna try.
So you can see like it's leveled stuff out, you know, and the whisper is still a whisper, but it's like cranked up so you can actually hear it. And that's with the setting of 100. So it'll obviously do less of that if you lower the compression level, and even less if you turn the lift off. So I like the Pro C2 from FabFilter. This one does automatic makeup gain. And let's see what it says on the tooltip. Automatic makeup gain is applied depending on the current settings for threshold, ratio, and attack. Auto gain helps you keep the audible audio level the same while adjusting the controls. So yeah, but the difference is this doesn't actually measure. It says it doesn't measure loudness to determine which gain to apply. It just makes an educated guess. And that's one issue I've had with the auto gain setting on C2. And Autocomp will actually compute how much gain reduction is being applied and adjust the makeup gain based on that. So if it's reducing 6 dB, if it's compressing 6 dB, you're going to get 6 dB of makeup gain. But that scales as you increase the control because louder is better. So I wanted, you know, this upper end of the range to boost the output, whereas other compressors, I'll show you on this, as you increase or lower the threshold, let's say,
and guns, I get really excited, and then I get really excited.
It's you know, lowering the output level. Even with auto gain on, it's lowering the output level as I lower the threshold. Or conversely, if I were adjusting the ratio.
And guns, I get really excited, and then guns.
See, and that to me is another issue with not automatic compressors, is that if I want something more compressed, I probably want it louder. It makes sense. Naturally, I want more compression. I want to limit the dynamic range of this. But if you do that and you lower the volume, it's counterintuitive. More compression, more volume. It just makes sense. So we have some questions here. Okay, great question from Nomad Studios. When would you use and not use the lift function on the plugin? So I have thought about this quite a bit, and my thought is this. If you need to get through something quickly and there's a lot of dynamic range, let's say it's a hosted show or it's a YouTube video or podcast, and it's like whispers and then they laugh really loud and like you just want stuff even and fat, I would have the lift on and have less compression. So this is going to lift things a little bit. It's not going to crush them though. So I would say just default to having the lift on. If you feel like it's bringing up the noise floor a little too much or you want it to be more dynamic, just turn it off. You can hear the output level dropped as I did that because, you know, not every word I'm saying is below the threshold. So with the lift on, you're also going to get more even compression because it's lifting the input signal before it goes to the compressor. So if you want more of your audio to be compressed, you know, even the quiet stuff, the whispery stuff, or the lower stuff that normally doesn't get compressed, it's going to bring it up to the level where the compressor can start to compress it a little bit and even things out. So good question. Alexander Edit says, I'm still hoping for a really good stem separation plugin. I already have a few of them, but the results aren't really usable. For that, really, yeah, I get you. There's Acon Digital Remix, I think, was one. Do I have it on here? Maybe it was Effect. Yeah, Acon Digital Remix. I've used this. Now my delay comp is all weird. And then Lala AI is another good one. That one you actually have to drag the stems. There's a couple other ones where you do that. You like put the audio in your browser and it spits stems out. So yeah, that would be that'd be big. That'd probably take me a while to figure that one out. All right, Master Nelson says, when using track and bus compression, which one should be compressing the most? What are some great starting points? Okay, I love this question. Great question. So if you're doing track and bus compression, I like to use different settings for the tracks. On the tracks, I will generally be doing more peak reduction, faster, transient stomping, if you want to call it that. So in Pro Compressor, I'd probably set the threshold maybe like around, I don't know, it depends. If it's a TV show, it's going to be lower, but somewhere between -20 and -14. Knee is fine. Attack, I'm going to have pretty fast, and release, I'm going to have not quite as fast. And then ratio, let's say 2.5 to 1, and makeup gain, it's going to depend on where things are clip gained at, but somewhere between 0 and 4 to where the input and output levels are matched. Again, that's another reason I made Autocomp, is I didn't want to have to think about the makeup gain. I just wanted it automatically computed. So what this is going to do is slap down consonants and peaks. If you have like forks in a dinner with their consonants, it's going to smooth that out. Then on the bus, I will have a more gentle compressor that is basically a leveler. Yeah, we'll leave this open. So here's the track and here's the bus. And probably more of a knee. Actually, on this one, it would be a peak. Yeah, on that one, it'd be a peak. And on the bus, it would be a smart or RMS. I guess you could do average. I haven't really messed around with that too much. And then slow, like 200-300 millisecond release, slow attack, maybe 15 milliseconds. Less ratio. I like stacking compressors with lower ratios, like 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1, 2 to 1, 1.8 to 1 even. And now we're going to have nice, gentle leveling of the source, and it's going to do it not super transparently, but transparently enough. So I'm going to have to do less big fader rides with this. But the downside with this is if I do need a line to be really loud, I have to ride the bus up because the compressor is going to be fighting my fader. So just keep that in mind as you're setting compressors up, is that if you mix into them, sometimes they're going to be doing the opposite of what you want. Okay. Good question there. Apollos, a plugin putting Foley or sound effects into perspective, like an easier way of mixing something into a space. Oh, yeah, that'd be cool. Like a reverb plus EQ. I could see that with some presets, kitchen, living room, bathroom, outdoor. Yeah, that's good. Alexander Ed says, one thing I really like about FabFilter plugins is their graphical user interface, GUI, and visual display of how plugin is affecting the audio. They do a great job of that, and they have a huge team, and man, they really have their stuff figured out. I'm just a guy, a guy in a shed, basically. So yeah, they're always gonna have beautiful, glorious looking plugins, and I use them all the time. So I think, yeah, if there's no other burning questions, we talked about Autocomp, we talked about setting up other compressors for track and bus. We've talked about, let's see, what else have we talked about? We talked about a lot of stuff. So I think there's one more question, Nomad Studios. So should the Autocomp be used on the bus or the track? I would use it on the bus. That is what I would suggest, because it's going to help. Like, do your work on the faders if you're mixing with, faders, which I always recommend, but have Autocomp be on your bus, so that it kind of smooths things out and it's easier to adjust too. Like if, the output is just too low, you can whatever you need to do. There you go. Good question. Other videos that I'll be doing, I think I need to do, it'd be kind of boring, but I don't know. Do you guys prefer dialogue, sound effects, or mixing videos? That's a good question. I'm like by trade a dialogue editor on union shows, and then on non-union ones, I will generally do either sound design or re-recording mixing, sometimes sound supervising. But like union, I'm more of like the mixer, supervising sound editor. Wait, on non-union, I'm the re-recording mixer, supervising sound editor. And then on the union side, I'm basically just dialogue or ADR. So yeah, that's like dialogue videos. I could just pump those out, no problem. Sound effects, looks like we have 1 vote for mixing, 1 vote for sound effects mixing, 1 vote for dialogue. Milo says, can you automate it? Yes, you can automate. Autocomp has, I'll show you, there's not very many controls, like that's really it. Bypass, compression amount, gain, limiter on, low boost on, and that's it. Okay, so dialogue. Do you have videos on mixing footsteps and cloth? I often struggle to make it cut through the mix. Well, generally you don't want them to cut through the mix. You want them to be completely invisible. And sometimes that means taking them out or burying them to where it just barely registers. But yeah, like probably the biggest note I get when I'm mixing a narrative project is turn the Foley down. So yeah. The other thing is performance. Often if you're struggling to make something cut through the mix, it's not the right sound. And Foley in particular needs to be performed a little bigger than picture. So if, somebody's walking and they're walking quietly, you still have to walk, medium level. And then the room makes a big thing too. So a lot of that comes down to the performance of the Foley artist. Okay, for those of us who are not American, what do you mean by union work? So in America, in the United States of America, not just North America or South America, we have trade unions that, I got to be careful, I don't want to get in trouble. They attempt to protect their members from like low pay and bad work conditions. So IATSE, the International Alliance of Theater Stage Employees, I think, is the umbrella of people that work on movies, TV shows, even events. And so the sound side of that is MPEG, the local 700, and they, bargain for how much you get paid, your benefits, and that kind of stuff. So the union projects are bigger budget, like you're going to make good money on them. You get health insurance, you get retirement stuff, and it's good. Great. Like if you get a union gig, you're set up for a little bit. Non-union stuff, you have to negotiate for your own pay. There's no union, protecting you. So you basically, here's what I want to get paid. There's no benefits. It's often freelance or contract work. It's not paid like, weekly paychecks. So on the one hand, you can be a little more free. You can potentially make more money on non-union stuff, but you get hosed on benefits and all the other stuff. The stuff that you non-Americans have automatically, like health insurance and benefits. Dialogue mixing, and if you can somehow find out how to do reconform vids with Matchbox. So I have one video with Matchbox, but it's with an older version. Joe Schiff, the legendary dialogue editor, one of the nicest guys I have worked with and probably one of the best dialogue editors out there. A BS 1770 filter on the detector as a sidechain filter would be nice. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I could look into that. A loudness tool. There's a lot of loudness tools out there, but that's something that maybe is not as saturated. There's a lot of compressors and EQs out there, so I got to be careful with that. The footsteps on Warrior are quite present, but not in the way. They feel well EQ'd and compressed to not have pokey transients, but you can certainly hear them. So if we're talking about transients on Foley, yes, a lot of that comes down to the artist, their performance, their shoes, the surface, the room. The microphone obviously has a big part to play in that. So if you're recording Foley, try to stay away from mics that are naturally bright, like a Sennheiser 416, some of the large diaphragm condensers. I do know some Foley mixers / recordists like ribbon mics for recording spiky stuff, recording footsteps and other transient, keys, jingling, chains, stuff like that. So anything that can kind of smooth over the transients when you're recording is going to help, because once it's recorded, it's very easy to crush it too much with a compressor. And there's also no substitute for mic placement and mic selection in a recording. You can only do so much in post, in spite of all the tools we have. So good question. And footsteps are one of those things where, like, I know Tom Cruise is famous for not wanting to hear footsteps, and other directors get really turned off by them. Birds is another thing. I can kind of tell you guys a little story about birds. So it was 2014, I think. I had been sound designing and mixing I was starting. No, it wasn't 2014. Hold on. This would have been the movie came out, I think, in 2014. It was probably 2012. So I had been mixing for a little bit, and I was getting trained up by the owner of this company, this post house. He, spent a lot of time teaching me, super patient with me because I'm a little slow. And, he was like, if you keep working on this, like, you could end up being the lead mixer here. So that was my goal. So I put my time in, and this temp mix came in. Temp mix is where they're cutting the movie and they need to screen it. So they're going to play it in a theater and get people's reactions, see what scenes they need to work on. And the head mixer was like busy on another show, and he's like, you know what, take this temp mix, see what you can do with it. So I had a couple days, and I worked as hard as I could, really hit it off with the clients. And they requested me. They came back, a couple months later, and they're like, okay, we're ready for the final mix and sound design. We're like, let's get this ball rolling. And they said, we want Tom to mix this. So they requested me, which was a first for me. And I was super pumped. And they were like, this is a theatrical movie. Like, it's going to be in thousands of movie theaters across the US. It's going to play in Britain. Like, this is a big step. Are you sure you're ready for this? And I was like, yeah, man, I got this, no problem. So I supervised on it, and I mixed it. And it was a long process, a lot of, it's a horror film called The Quiet Ones. So if you want to check it out, you can. And so we got to the point where we were about to start mixing, and we were reviewing sound design. And the film takes place in Great Britain in the fall, in like the 70s. So we can't have modern cars, and it's in the countryside. So what do you think, early fall, late summerish, you're going to hear wind, you're going to hear, the house creaking when you're inside, but outside, of course, we put birds in. There's trees everywhere. You're going to hear birds. So first day of the sound effects review, we done sound design review, but not the like backgrounds and more like the, not as important sound effects. Director comes in, and he sits down, and we push play on the first scene, and immediately he's like, stop. What the is that? And I turned around, and I was like, we got some wind. You could see the trees moving. He's like, no, not the wind. I like the wind. What is that cheeping in the background? do I hear birds? And I was like, yeah, well, we put birds in because, you know, it's nature and they're out in the country and it kind of tells you that like there's some life. He's like, no, there's no life. This is a scary movie. We can have no birds in this entire film. This was the first scene of like 100-minute feature where like, you know, it takes place inside, outside, daytime, nighttime. And he's like, go to a night scene outside. I want to check something. So we go to the night scene, push play. What do you put in a night exterior for your background ambience? Cricket. So we've got, they're light crickets, you know, they're out away from the, you know, the mic and everything. Like they're distant crickets. No, get that out of there. No crickets. I want no crickets and no birds. So at that point I was like, okay, well, give me, you know, a day or two to go through this. You guys come back in a couple days and we'll take out basically all the animals from the background. So we had to go through every single scene and take them all out. And then he comes back, John, the director, and we start playing him stuff. And he's like, okay, this is good. You know, you got the wind, you got the trees moving. Like, this is all really good. And then he thought about it. And he's like, but there's one scene where I want a bird. And it was because the characters, it was a beautiful moment between the characters. And we went to the scene and we didn't have any birds at that point. So he's like, you know, this is where I want the bird. And he said, but I think there's one in production. So we listened to the dialogue, flipped over to the dialogue stem and heard it. And there was a production bird. So in that whole movie, there's like one, we might have brought him back in like one or two other scenes. But I think that bird in that scene is just in production. And so, you know, that's how we did that. That mix was so fun because it was my first big movie, and John Pogue, the director, was super patient. He was really specific. Glenn Garland was a picture editor. He did a great job. Like, he had really good ideas on the dub stage. And they had an assistant that we pranked where like fights happen. You know, you get in arguments and everything, but we were all buddy by the end of the mix. But the assistant was like pretty nervous. Like, he was just, ooh, you know, he was a very anxious kind of guy. So John and I got together and we're like, let's, on the last day of the mix, we'll stage a scene where, you know, John pretends to be pissed off and just frustrated with the whole mix and wants me to start over from scratch. So we set up this scene, we acted it out, and the assistant was just like turned white, you know, seeing John pretend to blow up. It was kind of mean, but it was also fun, and we had a laugh afterwards. So anyways, mixing can be really fun. Make sure you listen to the directors, even if they want to take all the birds. You know, the most important thing, really, if you think about it, is that the clients are happy. It's not that you feel good about yourself, that you get the award, get nominated, but like, or, you know, that you're proud to show other sound people your work. The most important thing is that the client has a good time working with you. They're happy with what you do, and that's going to make them hire you again in the future. So that's my word of wisdom for this stream. Maybe I'll try to do this. Yeah, maybe not so diatribe-y and long-winded, but a little nugget of wisdom from the couple of things that a slow person like me has learned over the past almost 20 years now. That's crazy. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I think I'm going to sign off. Do we have any more comments? Apollo says, I got criticized for birds and crickets. Yeah, directors pick up on weird stuff like that. Footsteps are the other thing. If you want to support the channel, instead of having you Patreon me or whatever other wonky things people use to beg for money, pick up Autocomp, pick up DXB channel strip. Like, I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to make it to where you don't get nothing for something. Like, if you're going to, you know, if you want to support the channel, you want to support me, get something that's useful, that helps you out. You know, get a plugin, get a template off my website. And if not, and you just want to watch content, that's totally cool too. So thank you guys. Big thank you to channel members, Simon and a bunch of other people who've helped. Let me just look on the Discord real quick and see, make sure who I'm thinking right. Because you guys, like, yeah, Sean helped, Hillpost, Mike, Mike had a really good note on the GUI for Autocomp. So thank you guys so much for helping me test this. Adam helped test plugins. Like, you guys helped me get through the PC build on this. And I really just appreciate you guys so much on the Discord, the members only Discord. So thank you guys for all your help and for your support. And I guess with that, I'll see you guys next time. I got to get busy. I got to get to work. And yeah, have a good week. If you have any ideas for videos or anything like that, drop a comment. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. I will do my best, even though I'm working this week, I'll do my best to do a edited video on Thursday. I need to get back on that, but I've been trying to make some money because I haven't worked very much this year. So it's like, if work hits, I got to snap to it and I got to get busy so I can keep, not keep up with the Joneses, but just pay the bills, you know? Like, it's been a weird, slow year for the filmmaking industry. So if work's there, I got to jump on it. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Take care.